Welcome back to the Transform with MG podcast, where we'll talk all things transforming your health, body, and mindset. Honestly, today my head is just not screwed onto my neck. I don't know what's wrong with me, so I apologize in advance on how this podcast is going to go. I'm going to try my best to answer all the questions in the most detailed way as I can, but honestly, it's just been like a roller coaster of a day. I know nobody asks, but let me tell you. So I got up nice and early. I was like, this is great. I'm going to head down to my favorite cafe by the beach and do my morning routine. So what I'd usually do is bring my journal, bring a book, head down on my scooter down to the beach and sit at a little cafe with bean bags, get a coffee, probably get a snack, journal for a bit, read for a bit, and then I'll walk down the beach. And it's just like a wholesome way to start the morning. And you know, as they say, if you win the morning, you win the day. And I think like having that hour to 2 hours in the day to just like prioritize myself and my head, my mind, it just puts me at ease. And it's just like a part of mindfulness added to my routine, especially when I know I have a hectic day. It's just nice to be able to do that, not look at my phone, and just like pour in my own cup before I give to everyone else. So I thought this is great. I started my day really early, got ready, packed my bag, got everything with me, locked up the house, sit on my scooter, go to grab my keys, and there's no keys. I thought I put my keys in my school bag, but they weren't there. So I started panicking a little. I'm like, okay, maybe I just left them back in the bedroom. Let's just check. Nowhere to be found. Absolutely flipped the whole bedroom upside down, flipped the whole house upside down. Nowhere. I was like, okay, this is great. Can't go anywhere. So I was like, I'll just continue on with my morning routine and stay calm. Well, after I had a mental breakdown and decided to call my friend, telling her I've no clue where my keys are, who kind of put me at ease and saying just like, maybe it's meant to be, maybe you're just not meant to go anywhere today. I was like, okay, fine, maybe it is supposed to be like that. So went out for my walk, listened to a podcast, calmed down a little, did my gratitude journal, like dive straight into work, and then I had a hair appointment. So as you can see, if you're watching this on video, I went to the dark side. I got really sick of my blonde highlights. To be honest, I just wasn't vibing with the blonde at all. When I had extensions and I had blonde highlights, I really loved my hair. But without having the extensions, I just wasn't really vibing it. And I was like, I need to go back to brunette. I actually went for a hair appointment last week, and it just didn't turn out the way I wanted to. I just don't know what's up with hairdressers deciding to put their own spin on what you're asking for. Anyway, I went back today and they fixed it, and I'm very happy with it. So back to the dark side. Anyway, I got a Gojek, so they're like local taxis here. So I got a scooter to pick me up. Went there, and then I texted the guy from the scooter rental, does he have a spare key? He said to come by at like 4:30, or I thought he said to come by at 4:30. So I ordered another Gojek around like 4:15 to come and pick me up. And then I was leaving my house, and he was actually outside my house. And I was like, oh, okay, like you're here with the spare key. Absolute gem. Like honestly, I think he just like flipped my whole mood upside down in a positive way. He had a spare key, like he didn't even want anything for it, and I was like, no, like here you go, take something. And he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna go get a massage. And he was so happy to go get a massage, and I was like, yeah, like how much is it? Like I'm just gonna pay for it, you know. Like I was just so appreciative. He just came out all the way to my house with a spare key. So that was the story, and I was able to drive down here. And also, it's just so late. I never record this late, so again, my mind might be a little frazzled. So yeah, that's an update on how my day went, which nobody asked for, and it has zero correlation to where this podcast is gonna go. But I thought I'd update you on this. And now I'm gonna dive into this week's questions. Okay, so the first question that we have is how to deal with bloating. I think it's important to identify where the bloating is coming from, because when you can get down to the root cause of what is causing you to bloat, then you'll be able to come up with a solution, because there are various reasons why an individual or like why we might bloat. Some of the most causes of bloating are due to too much gas in our intestines, and that comes from digestive issues. For example, eating food too fast or eating foods that don't particularly agree with us. For example, I don't particularly digest red onion, sweet corn, too much dairy. In fact, actually, majority of people, something like 90% of people, are lactose intolerant. This means that they don't have the enzyme that is able to digest lactose found in dairy. So they find themselves just feeling bloated or having other like stomach issues when consuming too much dairy. So it's quite common. Another reason why we might be bloated is depending on the hormonal fluctuations going on in our body throughout our cycle. When we're in the second phase of our menstrual cycle, in the luteal phase, our progesterone rises, estrogen falls, and that kind of mismatch between the two hormones causes us to hold on to more water. So we experience more water retention, which results in bloating. So identifying which of those causes makes you bloated is going to help you find a solution to help and resolve that. So with bloating, there are preventative methods, and there also are some remedies when in the short term when you are feeling bloated. So let's maybe talk a little bit more about the preventative methods of like what can you do to minimize bloating happening in the future. One of them being is introducing fiber. If you're not eating already a lot of fruit, vegetables, pulses, legumes, it might be a good idea to start to introduce them. Introduce them slowly though, because they in themselves, if you are not used to eating too much of them, is gonna hold on to a lot of gas in your intestines. But over time, if you slowly start introducing them, they will help to move things through your digestive system, which is gonna ease off any like gut discomfort that you might have from like eating particular foods. Another thing that's gonna help move things through the digestive system is drinking more water, making sure you regularly exercise, and that again just helps with bowel movements and water retention, minimizing processed foods. So a lot of processed foods have a lot of salt and fat, and salt, like the sodium in salt, holds onto water. Again, that's another cause of bloating. So trying to minimize it. You don't need to completely eliminate it. Like processed foods are convenient, which helps a lot of people to kind of stay on top of their nutrition, but you should be looking at the quality of your food as well, because what you eat really does have an impact on like your mood and energy, and even like your focus and happiness. Like there's such a close link between your gut and your brain, something called the gut and brain axis, and everything is connected. Like it's actually mad. It's so important to look at what you're eating, not only how much, and trying to fit in whatever into your calories. Like I get a lot of clients being like, oh, is it okay to have like 2 protein bars per day to reach my intake, or is it okay to like have protein shakes to eat to reach my protein intake? And yes, like they are good, and yes, they are ways that you can help to like increase your protein intake. But like if your whole diet is going to consist of like packaged foods like protein bars, for example, or other like highly processed foods, like you're not going to feel your best. And then also practice mindful eating. So one of the causes I mentioned that leads to bloating is eating too fast. And nowadays we're all so freaking busy, like that we don't even have 5 or 10 minutes to sit down and have a meal without distractions. Like I know I do it a lot of times as well, when I'm swamped with work and I just bring my lunch to my desk and eat it in front of the laptop, and with a blink of an eye I don't even remember eating it. So one thing, it's like causing gut discomfort, But then also another thing, it may cause overeating because you're not paying attention what you're having. You're not actually feeling as satisfied as you would sit down and really honored like your meal and like appreciated all the flavors and properly chewed your food. Another distraction is just like scrolling on your phone or watching TV. So practicing mindful eating where you're like put whatever you're doing to the side and sit down for those like 5-10 minutes, eat your meal, and then get back to it. Like, it's not actually going to take a huge chunk out of your time. Like, I thought it would for me, and I'm like, no, I want to multitask. Like, I'm gonna do like reply to messages while I like scoff my bolognese, but then I was like wondering why. I'm like, oh my god, did I eat that already? I'm like, I nearly eat another portion, and I noticed a huge difference in how food was digesting for me, but also my satiety levels when I decided to practice more mindful eating. And it doesn't, like, I'm not perfect, like, I don't eat every single meal mindfully, but I do try my best to at least have like 2 out of my 3 meals, or like 50-60% out of my meals that are eaten mindfully. So yeah, just a little tip, and that could help with bloating as well. And then short-term strategies and tools that you can use when you're feeling extremely bloated and uncomfortable. I found that herbal teas are really good. Peppermint tea, dandelion tea, or peppermint oils also help. Lemon and ginger tea, they're all kind of help to move things through the digestive tract. So if you're feeling bloated, maybe opting for like a nice lukewarm herbal tea, also drinking more water, like I mentioned, it just helps to move things along the digestive system as well, and some gentle exercise helps to relieve that too. But if like being constantly bloated is a signal that there's something not right in your body, and you should like check it out. If it's the case where you're like getting to the end of the day and your stomach is bloated, it could possibly that you just have extra volume in your food. Like, a lot of us, just like, I know I used to like freak out when I'd be looking in the mirror in the evening. I'm like, why isn't my stomach as flat as in the morning? Well, it's not that I was even bloated. I simply just had food and drink that I consumed throughout the day in my stomach. So it wasn't something to freak out. But if it's the case where you're like uncomfortably bloated all the time, then you should probably consult with a doctor. What is the best way to gain balance for Bulgarian split squat as I keep wobbling? Right, there's a few things. I know they can be challenging from like stability and balance standpoint. So what I found works good is actually bringing a box or a bench over to a squat rack and holding a weight in one hand, whether that's a dumbbell or kettlebell, and then holding onto the rack with the other one. That's gonna help you be more stable, and then you can actually focus on the movement, which is what you want. Because if you're putting all your energy into just stabilizing yourself and balancing yourself, you're kind of taken away from the correct muscles being worked, because maybe your core is taken over. Another thing is to stagger your stance a little bit. So your knee should be in line with your hip. Often we place the foot that's on the ground too centered, so it's like in line with our torso, and this is where we kind of like wobble from side to side. What else? Okay, another thing what you can do is focus on the mind to muscle connection. So the foot that's on the ground, making sure it's that leg that's doing most of the work. So you should have 3 points of contact on the floor: your small toe, big toe, and heel, and you should really push through that heel of that leg to drive yourself up. I think that's it. Yeah, but these are like the 3 things that you can experiment around with. I would say number 1, the one where you put the bench or a box by the squat rack, be a good starting point until you build up more strength in both your legs and your core to stabilize yourself, and you really get used to the movement pattern, and then you can play around with the other ones and see what works for you. But it might take a little bit of experimenting, but I'm sure you get there. There also are regression exercises. You could start off with split squats without a bench or a box until you get used to the movement pattern again, because essentially it is the same movement pattern. It requires still stability and balance, but you're a little bit more stable because both of your legs are on the ground. What is the relationship between the gut microbiome and your mood? Okay, so I actually mentioned this just there a few minutes ago, but my wonderful friend Kira came on to Transform with MG to conduct a presentation on the gut health and everything to do with managing it in order to like help us achieve our health and fitness goals and just make us feel really good. And one of the things that she mentioned, which I thought it was super interesting, and I started looking more into it, is that like good brain axis and the relationship that our gut has to our brain, which in turn has an impact on our mood and or like mental well-being. So if you're a client and haven't watched that, I'd highly recommend it. It's going to be on the members area. So one thing that I introduced into Transform with MG, which I'm constantly trying to improve, because my goal is to provide as much information, education, and tool for clients that come in order for them to like optimize their fitness journey and achieve their health and fitness goals. Because Transform with MG is not just diet plans and workout plans, because they can easily be got on Google. It's, yes, the support, the accountability, which comes first and foremost. And of course, like you're still getting like amazing nutrition support, amazing workouts, if I do say so myself. But also one huge pillar of Transform with MG is like the education side of things. When you join, you get like a whole education portal with videos, guides, recipes, and now we're going to be having like guests and experts talk on like detailed subjects to do with not only diet and the gym, but also like our overall mental well-being on the topic of the gut and the relationship between our moods. So when we think of mental health, we automatically turn to our brain and what's going on in our head and our thoughts and feelings, and we fail to recognize that it can be something to do that's going on like down below in our gut, in our stomach. And like I was shocked by that because I never thought of it that way, but I always heard the saying, you are what you eat, or what you eat you become. And I never really looked deeper into that, but it makes total sense. Like what we feed our body, we're literally going to be a reflection of that. So like if you fuel yourself with crap and with highly processed foods all the time, it's not gonna support you. It's not gonna support your health, but it's not gonna support your brain either. And you are gonna be feeling down, like you are gonna be low on energy. You're gonna be feeling, I'm not going to go and say like you're going to be feeling like depressed, but there's a lot of studies to show that diet and depression are very closely linked together. For example, I mentioned fiber and how important that is, but if we don't get enough of it, we may experience a decrease in the good bacteria in our microbiome, and as a result, we're going to have increased stress and inflammation, which can then lead to feelings of depression. And an interesting observation that I thought, but it's literally fascinating, and I think there's so much detail in how the gut and the brain are interlinked. So yeah, if you're already on Transform with MG, you can watch that presentation to go into more detail. Like I'm not the expert on it, like I'm not gonna act like I am. I don't have all the answers, and this is partly one of the reasons why I'm bringing people on to do like webinars for Transform with MG, so people can get like a whole picture. And if you're not a client, then you should be. The link is going to be in the show notes below if you want to fill out an application. What are the main factors that influence your metabolism? Our metabolism is influenced by our age, gender, activity levels, muscle to fat ratio, and our hormones. If you don't know what metabolism is exactly, let me just like break it down into the simplest way as I can. But essentially, it's like a term used for all the chemical processes going on in our body. Essentially, there's two things happening. One is breaking down food in order to provide our body with the nutrients, and the second one is building up like cells and the repair of cells. We have this thing called a basic metabolic rate, BMR, and essentially that is the amount of calories we burn at rest in order to maintain our weight. And that consists of 60 to 70% of the amount of calories we burn. So other things is like non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, and then like plant activity thermogenesis. So a person deemed to have a higher metabolism is gonna burn more calories doing fuck all compared to a person that is deemed to have lower metabolism. The term metabolism has really been abused by the fitness industry, either by companies or individuals selling their products or services, telling you to essentially do this workout to speed up your metabolism or take this supplement to speed up your metabolism. And people fall for it because it plays on people's insecurities. And if you're really unhappy with your weight and with how you look, you will want quick fixes. Like I want quick fixes too. We want things yesterday, you know what I mean? So like if you're vulnerable to these things, you may fall for those scams of people or companies selling you services and products, claiming it's going to boost your metabolism, but it's total BS. So BMR is largely determined by the total lean mass, which means the more active you are, in particular if you engage in weight training or resistant training, you're going to have more muscle, and the more muscle that you have, you're going to be burning more calories. And this is why I always encourage people to go lift weights, because apart from looking a certain way, it has also other benefits. So when I get girls coming to me, it's like, oh, if I want to look toned and lose body fat, surely I should be doing cardio. Well, like, no, not necessarily, because if you go lift heavy and the more muscle you can build, actually you're going to be burning more fat. Like, it's win-win really, right? So apart from like having more muscle, age is also an influence on metabolism. As we grow older, our metabolism slows down. Also, the size of an individual matters. Bigger people have higher metabolism than smaller people. Hormonal imbalances can also influence how fast or slow a person's metabolism can be. So yeah, that's essentially how metabolism works and what influences it. Right, let's move on. How to deal with holiday snacking when it's warm and you don't feel... Wait, let me read that again. How to deal with holiday snacking when it's warm and you don't feel like full meals. Okay, so I understand that hot weather can be appetite suppressant and we don't feel like having full meals, heavy meals, especially warm meals. That's so fine, but it's important to keep some sort of structure with your eating habits, especially if you want to go back into your routine after holidays with more ease and not feeling like you completely have like slid down the rabbit hole. Because I understand that it's a lot easier to be snacking, especially when you're staying at like a resort and you're just like chilling by the pool and you'd prefer to be picking at stuff. But this is where the problem comes in, because you're not having proper meals and you're just like picking at like foods there and then. When it comes to like your usual meal timing, for example, when you have like your lunch or your dinner, you're not hungry, and then you're like, oh, I'm not just gonna eat, but then 2 hours go by and you're like, oh, I'm hungry now, I'm just gonna have a little snack. But picking at those little things can really quickly add up, and also you're probably missing out on a lot of nutrients and protein, because if you're opting for snacks, I highly doubt it's just like vegetable sticks or like fruit pieces all the time. When we're on holiday, it's usually like ice cream and maybe crisps, maybe some biscuits, maybe some jellies. It's usually more like treats. If the appetite isn't there to have full meals or be eating exactly the same amounts as you do back at home, like that's not an issue, but having at least like breakfast, lunch, dinner at roughly the same times actually is gonna help keep hunger at bay. And you can opt for like fresh cold food. Like for breakfast, opting for something like a slice of toast with boiled eggs, small, has protein, fats, carbs, going to keep you fuller for longer. You could have like a bowl of yogurt with fresh fruit. Again, it's just like a small snack. It's fresh, it's light, it's cold. For lunch, a salad with a protein. For dinner, again, something small, doesn't have to be like a full-on Irish roast, you know what I mean? Like you could still have like a very light dinner, and opting for like 3 options or like 3 meals throughout the day, just reducing the quantity and going for more like fresh, cold stuff is gonna allow you to keep that structure. It's gonna make sure that you're keeping somewhat on top of your protein and nutrient intake. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be having snacks, because like I'm a freaking sucker for a bag of Lay's on holiday. Like having them by the beach, like honestly, it's just a dream. Like I almost look forward to that more than the holiday itself. Like, and that's absolutely fine. Like go for it, but just recognize that if you only gonna be going about your days eating snacks, you might be over your calories without even noticing it, because you're consuming highly palatable snacks that quickly add up in calories. They're processed, they're high in like salt, sugar, fat, instead of opting for like actual whole foods. And B, you might be lacking in like nutrients and vitamins and fiber and protein. So I would really try your best to still have some sort of a structure that you do back at home. It doesn't have to be the same food. You could have like a lot less quantity of the food, but it's really going to keep you stay on top of a routine. For alcohol, would spirits be the best to drink over wines, beers, and lagers? Well, yeah, like if you are in a calorie deficit and you're trying to watch your calories, then opting for lower calorie alcoholic beverages is going to be better, because you're going to be consuming less calories that way. So things like spirits, vodka, gin, tequila, and pairing that with a diet mixer like 7-Up Free, Coke Zero, Slimline Tonic. So like, you know, you can get your like vodka soda lime or gin and Slimline Tonic, Bacardi and Coke Zero. They would be roughly 80 calories. If you're trying to keep something not like, if you're not a spirit person and you prefer like the wine, I would say go for prosecco, because a glass of prosecco would have 100 calories, so it'd be a lot lower than a glass of wine. So prosecco and spirits would be the lowest alcoholic beverages that I would go for. But then you also need to consider how much you're drinking, because even if you decide to go for the lower calorie options, if you're having 10 of them, like you're having 800 calories in drink alone, and pair that with food, if you're also like eating on nights out, like it can quickly add up. Like it can literally be your whole intake. So when you're on a fat loss journey, there is some compromises. So it's being a little bit more mindful on how much you drink. And if it's the thing where it's like a once of a occasion, like it's your birthday and like you really just like, you know what, I'm just like, tonight's my birthday, I'm not really watching calories, I'm really just having a big night out where I'm prioritizing having a good time. How much I drink, I will deal with the consequences later. But I think it's just taking responsibility. So yeah, I think you can do both, like absolutely. The ones that you want to avoid, especially if you're on quite low calories, it would be cocktails and cider, especially cocktails, because they have a lot of sugar and some of them have like between 300 to 400 calories per drink. Like that's a full meal. So, but like, you know, it kind of depends as well. Like, are you a big drinker? Like, are you going to have a lot of drink and a night out? If that's the case, well, stick to spirits. But if it's something that you're like, you're going out for dinner and you really want to treat yourself to a cocktail, like go ahead. Like I'm a sucker for a good cocktail. Like I love the taste of it, but it's not something I would be drinking all night, especially if you're somebody that's looking to lose body fat. Should I prioritize protein targets or staying within calories? Both. you can't pick and choose. Both of them are important, and for all my clients, that's the only targets I set: calories and protein. And then I just give you the flexibility of being able to dictate how much carbs and fats you have, because it's not that important unless you're going stepping on stage. And I don't coach competitors. Saying that up, I coach clients that are lifestyle clients that have busy life, they have a life outside of the gym and simply want to look and feel good, want to feel confident in a dress, in a bikini, and I don't think they need restrictive protocols. And I think flexibility is super important, enjoyment is important, so it can be done in a really sustainable way. So yes, both are important. Calories you can view as an average across the week. Having ranges that to adhere to calories has been really helpful for a lot of clients, for myself as well, because I used to think that I need to be super perfect with a target, and if I didn't reach that or I went above it, that's it. The day was wrote off, and I was like, might as well start Monday. And this is what happens to a lot of people. If they can't be perfect, they think that they might as well not try or give up and start again Monday, and then they fall into that cycle of like restricting, feeling like a failure, starting over again, and yo-yo dieting essentially. So having ranges with calories is important. So although I will always set like a number of calories to adhere to per day, I will always say to my clients, stay within 20%. And that's below and above. Don't go too low, because if you go too low, below that target, you might think you're speeding up fat loss, but you're actually probably doing yourself more harm, because you're really underfueling your body, and your body is very smart. It's going to try and catch up with you, and you might feel really, really hungry in like a day or 2 days, and you're overeating and then actually putting yourself over your calories for the whole week. And then don't go too much above your target, because then it's going to be really hard to bring yourself back to a calorie deficit across the week. But it's an average across the week that will matter, not what you do on individual basis. Protein, on the other hand, is a little bit different, because we need to like like eat protein sources essentially throughout the day for the protein turnover to keep happening, so we can like build new muscle, repair muscle, and perform at our best. It has like, it's an important macronutrient for many processes in our body, for like our health, like to have healthy nails, skin, hair, and so on. It's like the key for building and repair. So it's important that we get enough of it throughout the day. So that's why protein targets are set. Again, it's important not to fall into the perfectionism mindset that like, if you have a target of 120 grams of protein, if you don't hit that, you're freaking out. You think that the day is absolutely ruined. Not the case. If you were to absolutely choose, it comes like, let's reframe this question. It's like, should you eat above your calorie target to reach your protein target? No. If fat loss is the goal, what's going to dictate fat loss is how much calories you do consume. So if you had to choose, calories come first and then protein. But if you find yourself going above your calories in order to reach the protein intake, then it might be the case where you just have to look at your food intake and see what things you can change around in order to still fit within your calories and be close or reaching that protein intake as well. So yes, to answer your question, calories come first, protein, but ideally both matter. Both have a role to play. Calories, there's averages. You can kind of have that flexibility around it, which allows you to go over your calories if you have things coming up, maybe if you have training days and you're feeling more hungry, and then also you can kind of play around with it in terms of like being a little bit below it on other days, and it should like level out. Protein is a set target. It's important that we have it throughout the day. So it's not that you're consuming 120 grams in one sitting. Please don't do that. Space it out throughout the day and try and get as close to your target as you can. And these are all the questions for this week's episode. really good ones. And if you found this helpful, you've taken anything away from it, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with a friend or took a screenshot of it and shared it on your social media so somebody else can perhaps benefit from it. And if you feel like you need extra guidance in reaching your body goals, in transforming your health and mindset, taking control of your habits, then I'm going to leave the coaching application form below in the show notes. It's totally free to fill that out and inquire, and then I will get back to you so we can chat more about how best you can approach your goals and where to get started. And I shall see you in the next episode.